Hello, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to be doing a book review for the Folk of the Air Trilogy. Now, for those who don't know, the Folk of the Air Trilogy is the books The Cruel Prince, The Wicked King, and The Queen of Nothing. How did I forget that? I did initially try to film this review and was in the editing processes at the time when I actually decided to refilm the entire review, because my last one was almost mean-spirited, and instead of actually giving good critiques, I felt like I was just being rude. I could not remember names, and it was a disaster. So I think this time around, I'm going to try and be a little more general with what I like and what I dislike, and be a little bit more general about the plot and not do a spoiler-filled review. It has been a month since I finished the series, but I do have some thoughts on what my issues are. I clearly have not learned my lesson from Booktok Rex, because this one was also not my favorite. Disclaimer, just because I wasn't the biggest fan of these books doesn't mean they're not good to someone else. They just were not my favorite. To be fair, I did like creatively where Holly Black took things, but it was more of, I liked her world. The characters were a bit more of a problem for me. So let us start with The Cruel Prince. So The Cruel Prince is about Jude, who is a human in fairyland, and she is different and made fun of because she's different. And so is her twin sister Taryn. They were brought to the fairy world by their adopted father, and they're very used to living in Elfame, which is the name of the kingdom. And they have two different approaches on how they deal with that, while their oldest sister just doesn't want to live in Elfame at all. I gave this book a 4-star. Now, the thing is with these books is the first one is very, very slow at first until you get to about the halfway point. Now, I gave this a pass on my original read because I am still learning about this world. I figured it was a world building technique, and there's nothing wrong with the first book of a series being a little bit slower as you kind of move forward. Because I remember reading The Bone Ships and having issues, not really having issues, but remembering it's actually very slow to begin with. But you're learning about the world around it. So there's really nothing wrong with the first book being slow, and then it goes into hard drive or to 100 miles an hour right there in the middle. There is a conflict between Jude and Carden. He hates her, he can't stand her, and we're not really sure why. She's bullied by his little gang. Also, weird love triangle thing goes on. But I do enjoy kind of some of the characters, like the assassins. I think they're really fun characters to kind of get to know. I do like that Jude's story goes a different way than how she wants it, where she's still kind of involved in this kingdom that she lives in, but it's not exactly what she wants, but it becomes more beneficial to her later. So I did enjoy this book. I do have a couple issues. I don't like Jude's motivation. I really don't like Jude's motivation. The twist, I feel like, comes out of nowhere. I don't feel like there's enough foreshadowing to really see what's going on. Like, I don't want so much foreshadowing that I know exactly what's going to happen, but there's not enough foreshadow for me to justify the big twist in the middle. Still a fun book to read, if I'm going to be honest. I liked learning about Elfame. I liked kind of learning about their interactions in Elfame, how they're in danger in Elfame. Carden is a jerk. I do not like, and this kind of goes for the whole series, not just the first one, I do not like the trope of the tortured, abused bad boy being a jerk and then suddenly becoming you know, but he's the love interest. I've never been a fan of that trope. When you've been through trauma, I get it, but on the other end of that, it's not an excuse to be an awful person. Cardan was not fun to read. He was just kind of a jerk. I mean, there are times where I guess he's redeemable, but they don't really justify it. And his issues that you learn about more in The Wicked King kind of don't justify his treatment of not only Jude and Taryn. I don't think it really justifies how he not only treats them, but other members of Elfhame. It's really weird. So all in all, I gave it a 4-star. I didn't hate it. Obviously not. But it wasn't really wow amazing. Yes, the twist got me, but looking back, it's like, I didn't really see enough foreshadowing, but it was effective. So I will say that. That would be The Cruel Prince. And I don't really want to give away too much, because if I give away a lot, like with The Wicked King especially, you can probably tell by the title what happens at the end of the first book. But I want to start off by saying I gave this one 3 stars. Everyone in the second book sucks. Like, they're horrible people. There's betrayal, there's self-absorption, there's this power grab situation that everyone's involved in, and everyone just sucks. I have no issue with flawed characters. If you have a good character who has flaws, that's actually a very good thing to have in a book. But having characters who are just awful is not fun to read. I would have rather read about the assassins, the bomb and the roach, than really cared about Jude's story here. Again, I'm not going to give away too much because it kind of gives away the ending of the first book. This is why these reviews are so hard. But basically, spoiler alert, Cardan becomes king. Cardan becomes king and Jude is by his side. I'm not going to say how that happens, but that happens. And, you know, Jude is basically in charge, kind of. We are introduced to different characters. We're introduced to a new kingdom, which was actually very interesting. I will say this about that, though. We are introduced to the kingdom of the Undersea, I want to say is what it's called. And the queen of the Undersea. And her daughter was a friend of Cardan's. There were a little more than that, but again, I don't want to give it too much away. Those scenes in which Jude spends, I think, months underwater are effective. This may be a mild spoiler, but they're very effectively done. Like, they make the reader super uncomfortable, so you kind of feel Jude's discomfort. And I enjoyed how that was written. Like, I didn't enjoy the experience, but I think that's the point. I did enjoy how effective that was. So props to Holly Black for that. That was wonderfully written. There's more betrayal from siblings, and it's just, the whole thing becomes like a big political mess. So when we get to the third book, The Queen of Nothing, one thing I don't like is Cardan's complete switch. I don't feel like he has the character development to kind of justify his change in attitude between the first book, the second book, and the third book. I just don't. There's not a lot of development. Yes, he's being trained by the roach. Spoiler again, sorry. But that's really it. That's really the only thing that's changed, I feel like. So his change into like a decent love interest is more like a light switch rather than really a genuine growth experience. Trying to do this without spoilers is so hard too, because I don't want to give too much away, but I want to have like a fair review out there, right? So when you get to the last book, my biggest complaint with the last book is I don't think there's enough book. It's too short. It wraps up everything in a nice little bow. It wraps up everything very quickly. I will give this book credit, like full credit, that it didn't pull the same thing that the first two books did, because the first two books, like I said, the first one I excused it, but the second one also pulls it, where the second book is very slow and nothing really happens until like a big twist at the midway point. That happens for both the first and the second book. So I will give Holly Black credit here that she did not pull this a third time with the Queen of Nothing. Things get rolling pretty quick. I do think the third book, there's simply not enough book. There's a lot going on and there's not enough time. There's not enough Cardan to, like, again, justify his development. There's loose ends that I feel like you meet Cardan's mom, there's a constant, and she's apparently a threat, but we never see that. There's also like a running theme throughout the series that talks about Jude's mom and learning about Jude's mom in Elfhame. But again, that's never tackled. It's just kind of a running theme and then it sits there. So again, The Queen of Nothing got 3 stars. Not because it's bad, but because it's just unsatisfying for me. Again, if you like this trilogy, please, you are allowed to like this trilogy. Obviously, it just wasn't my favorite. So overall, probably if I averaged out my star ratings with 2 3s and a 4, my average would probably be about 3.5 stars for the entire series. Like I said, there's not a lot of character development for really any of the characters. Jude's is also kind of last minute. There are some things that happen that nobody gets, no one sees consequences for. There's stuff Jude does in the first book where she never sees consequences. There's stuff Taryn does in the last book where she never sees consequences for it. And that actually starts off the whole book. And small spoiler for The Queen of Nothing, because this just bothers the crap out of me. Because the twins switch places for a certain event. And so Jude steps in front of Cardan for the first time. And apparently he knows it's her on sight. But when she runs into the fairies who raised her, they don't figure it out for a few days. Okay, sure. I personally find that harder to believe. It did drag me out a little bit, but at least it got the story going, I guess. But it's not my favorite. Sorry. Small spoiler for the third book. I'm not going to say why, because again, spoiler. Also, Locke is a jerk. Probably my favorite characters in the entire series are the Bomb and the Roach, and their story is actually super sweet. I don't think we get enough of them because it's Jude's story. I would love it. I don't really care about the spin-off duology about Oak, the youngest of that little family. I don't care. I want to see more the Bomb and the Roach and their relationship, because I think that's cute, okay? That's just me. I should not be more invested in the side characters than I am the main characters. Like, no. But they're probably my favorite characters out of the whole thing, because everyone else is kind of just awful. Like, again, I don't mind flawed characters, but characters that are just awful, their motivations are awful, it pulls you out of the story in kind of the worst way and doesn't really give a lot of redeeming qualities to these characters that you're trying to be invested in and trying to follow. So all in all, I give the entire series about 3.5 stars. Not my favorite. One of the reasons I stepped out of YA was because of this series and the first chapter of A Study in Drowning. But this is one of the reasons I'm actually taking like huge breaks from YA. I am currently on Call the Bone Ships. You will see that vlog hopefully after this video goes up. And that's pretty much all I have to say on the series. I'm hoping that this review, although shorter, was a little bit less mean-spirited and a little more coherent. I figured being as spoiler-free as possible would just be a better review style, I guess, because I don't, like I said, it's been over a month since I finished these books, and every little detail that was like important to the story, I can't remember. Belkane is an a-hole. I don't like him at all. But I kept forgetting like little details, and it's just like, it's not It wasn't a good review, and I came off more as a mean-spirited, this book sucks kind of situation. And that is the last thing I want on this channel. I want, if I'm going to review books or book trilogies, if I like them or not, they need to be given a fair review. And I feel like I don't want to be that person that's hating on it because it's fun to hate on, because that's not why I'm here. I'm here to read books and make recommendations and let y'all come along as I read and find new favorites. That is The Folk of the Air Trilogy by Holly Black. I do know there is a sequel duology or spin-off duology about Oak. I don't think I'm really interested enough to try those books out. I'm very much not in the mood for a lot of YA, and I'm really enjoying seafaring fantasy right now. So I think that's gonna be it from me, you guys. Sorry that wasn't more informative, and I'm really sorry that this took me so long that I just had to redo the whole thing. But what are your thoughts? Like, what did you think of The Folk of the Air Trilogy? Please let me know in the comments below. If you agree with anything I said, if you disagree with anything I said, let me know. Start the discussion. Just remember to be respectful. And thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for your patience as I'm trying to figure out my video schedule, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.